Hey, are you thinking of buying a house this year? Stay tuned for 5 questions you should think about when buying a home in 2023. If we haven't met, I'm Christina Manyagi, and I'm a full-time real estate agent here in Walla Walla, Washington with John L. Scott Real Estate. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe and let's start a conversation about buying or selling a home in the Walla Walla Valley. So, for those 5 questions. Number 1 on my list, how many bedrooms and baths are in the house? That's actually 2 questions, and I'm going to add a third to it. What is the square footage of the house? Now you may think that you have to have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. However, don't get stuck on bedroom count, especially because square footage is actually more telling of how big the bedrooms are and how they're spread out. So the first question, how many bedrooms, how many baths, and what's the square footage of the house? Question number 2, when was the roof last replaced? So many times, all the time, I will get asked the question, how old do you think that roof is? And I have to say, I am unsure. So if you are thinking of selling your home and you're not sure about the age of the roof, I would actually recommend having a licensed roofer come and evaluate the life of the roof. They will not be able to tell you how old the roof is, but they will be able to give you an estimate of how much life is left in the roof. So when a buyer comes to your house, you can have that information ready for them because guaranteed they're gonna ask. And if you're a buyer, you absolutely should be asking, how old is the roof? Next on my list, whose fence is that? Have you ever walked into someone's backyard and seen a fence along the property line and thought, whose fence is that? Well, there's only one actual surefire way to know whose fence that actually is, and that is to hire a surveyor to come out and survey the property. Now, as a seller, you may think, why would I do that? I'm getting ready to sell my house. But buyers want to know whose responsibility is it to replace that fence or to keep it maintained. And if the fence is not actually yours, then it's the other property owner's responsibility to replace or maintain that fence line. Now, we live in Walla Walla, and I have never lived in a house where the fence line was not equally maintained by both sides of the fence, both the property owners on both sides of the fence. And often those property owners will split the cost of replacing the fence. We just put one in 2 years ago and we completely split the cost down the middle, 50-50 to replace the fence. Now you may not live in a place that is as friendly as Walla Walla. So if you're unsure of whose fence that is, it might be a good idea to hire a surveyor and have them come out and take a look and measure your property lines so you know where your lines lay. Next on my list, has the electrical, question 1, or the plumbing been updated in the home? Now this may only come up if you are buying an older home. However, it's still, in Walla Walla Valley, new construction there's not that much of it. So chances are you are buying a home that was built prior to updates in electrical and plumbing code. So if you are buying a home that was built, I would almost say anytime before 1980, you will probably want to know if the wiring has been redone or if the plumbing has been redone. I just looked at an inspection today where it was cast iron plumbing for the plumbing lines, and because of where this house is, it had very hard water, and so the cast iron was failing because the water was rusting the lines. Now, clearly, that plumbing has never been updated. So one of the things that this new homeowner is going to need to do is to bring in new PICC line plumbing, which is not an inexpensive, depending on the size of the house, venture. So knowing the age of the plumbing, knowing the condition of the plumbing, very, very important. We live in a house that has cast iron plumbing. Fortunately, it's been well maintained, and so we have no leaks or issues with it. But if you live in a house that hasn't been well maintained, you might want to check into what kind of plumbing is installed. The other thing is there's the older the home, the older the electrical work in the home will be. So you may run into things like knob and tube or cloth wiring. You may come across an older fuse box that is no longer to code because of safety issues. You may want to start saving for updates in electrical work if you live in a home that still has knob and tube or cloth wiring. The last question that I often get asked by excited buyers is, when can I move in? Or on the flip side, by anxious sellers, how long do I have until I have to be out of my house? So those two things are related. By Washington state law, a seller does not have to be out of the house until 9:00 p.m. on the day the deed is recorded. That means a buyer cannot enter until 9:01 p.m. on that same day. So if you are anxious about getting into your home and you've got your moving crew all lined up and you're ready to go and the deed's recorded, just know that seller has until 9:00 p.m. that night to move into the property. So make sure on your final walkthrough, which is done 3 days prior to closing, that you ask the listing agent or your buyer's agent asks the listing agent, what time do sellers plan to be out of the house? Because that will determine when you can move in. For more questions about buying or selling in the Walla Walla Valley, contact me, Christina Minyagi with John L. Scott Real Estate.